Well, hello and welcome to Kick Conflict to the Curb, where growth minded individuals and department leaders come to learn the greatest information from my guests on how they can kick conflict to the curb. I'm your host, Joyce Weiss, Queen of Conflict Resolution, and I support department leaders so they inspire and educate their team tired of feeling invisible or overlooked and are ready to use their voice without losing their cool. The result is they are respected and recognized. Well, I've got an important question for you. Do you ever are you conflict adverse or do you get tired of always being the person in the room to bring up a tough conversation because others don't either know how or they're afraid to do this? Well, this is what we're going to talk about. And I'm excited about our guest today, who is a powerhouse on facing conflict. And she knows it's called conflict, challenge, or opportunity. She knows how to look at opportunity in conflict. So I'd like to introduce our guest. I want to introduce Sarah Velez, Director of Learning and Career Pathways at Peckham. I met Sarah while preparing a facilitation for the Greater Lansing chapter of SHRM. We talked about her journey with conflict at work and how she addresses issues head on, not shying away from conflict. Since then, we've had more conversations to discuss her strengths in healthy confrontation and conflict in all areas of life. As a result of getting to know Sarah, I knew she would be the perfect guest for the show. While she now works in talent development, she worked for many years in labor relations, which involved daily difficult conversations. Here's a fun fact about Sarah. She's very outdoorsy and an avid cyclist. When the weather permits, she tries to get on her bike every day and rides at least 20 miles. Thanks and welcome to the show. Hello, Sarah.
Hi there, Joyce. How are you?
Good. So did you get on your bike today yet or not?
Not yet, but I do have a plan for later today, even though the weather's a little chillier than usual this time of year.
Oh, you are outdoorsy. And hey, we were talking in the blue and red room today about how people sometimes don't handle their basic needs. Hey, you're a real talk expert. So tell us just a little bit about that before we get into conflict, challenge, or opportunity.
Sure. Yeah. We were thinking about some of the experiences we've had in our lives where a need wasn't met. And that led me to thinking about how so many times our needs aren't met because no one knows what we need. And being able to take up space is something that for a lot of us is really uncomfortable. And so practicing taking up space, explaining what you need and why you need it is really our job.
It is our job. And I'm so glad I asked that question because every single person watching, either live or if you're watching the recording later on, if you think about a time when your needs were not met, and this could happen every day, whether you're an assertive person or you're not, when we don't get our needs met, it shows in so many different ways. So, Sarah, thank you for bringing that up. I brought it up, but thanks for such a great response. Now, could you tell us why people feel the need to be involved in situations that don't include them? This happens so often. I just had to ask you this question.
Yeah. This is a very human sort of habit to
Mhm.
have, right? When we have a situation in front of us that involves a conflict or someone else is explaining a problem to us, it is very human and very normal to insert ourselves or our feelings or to have feelings about it and to feel that those feelings are really important. It's really important others
Mhm.
hear how I feel about the situation. I think that pulls us into situations that we really don't have a role in necessarily.
And okay, leaders who are watching this, if you think about it, do you jump right in to help,
Mm,
even though it has nothing to do with you? Or do you back out and say,
yeah.
you know what? They need to figure it out. Or I need to coach this team member how to take care of it, her or himself. Tell me, Sarah, you're shaking your head
Oh yeah.
that way. So this is good. If it was like this, I'd still ask
Yeah.
you.
No,
So
it's so hard to discern. It can be very difficult to discern unless you ask. And this is something I've had to learn at work. I've had to learn it at home. I have teenagers. Teenagers have all kinds of problems, and they will come to you and vent their problems and air their grievances at will. And it's very difficult not to, as a parent, to jump in and get right into fix it mode. Same thing happens at work. Most of us as leaders, we care about our people when they have problems or when they're not performing at their peak. We want to jump in. We want to offer solutions. We want to fix it. And the most important thing can be ask, ask, are you coming to talk with me about this because you want me to fix it or you want ideas or do you just want to talk about it? Because I can listen. And then if you need ideas or solutions at the end of this, we can talk about it. But being more open to just listening.
and you okay, internally, am I here to fix things or am I here to listen?
Yeah.
So for you saying it's okay. Ask
Okay.
them, what do you want from me? Do you want me to help you through this or do you just want me to listen? Sometimes it's as basic as that.
Yep.
And I know the first day when I attained my master's degree in guidance and counseling, the instructor said, remember, folks, when you're a coach or a counselor, you always have to think, is help helpful? So many times I am, okay, full disclosure, I'm ready to jump in, especially when it comes to family, because I've got kids that have kids. So they're definitely adult. I say to myself, they're not asking for help. They will resent it if I just jump in. Joyce, stop and listen. And
Absolutely. And how
please
profound
listen.
is lived experience, right? How profound is
Yes,
lived experience for others?
absolutely. And did you ever, as a new leader, let's say, um, or growing in your career,
Mm.
did you ever fix things? And how did you figure out this powerful strategy of how to ask, do
Oh,
you need help?
100%, 150%. Absolutely. We talked about this too, the idea of the pendulum swinging, right? And how you compensate and overcompensate and try to find balance in your career and how you help others.
Yes.
I think symptoms of the over helping is that people stop asking you for help, right? And you can feel that they start to
Yes.
withdraw from asking you for assistance because they know that you're going to be overbearing. They're not getting what
Mhm.
they need from you, and it hurts the relationship. Helping other people to do for themselves is it's powerful stuff, and it
Oh,
empowers them, builds the relationship.
and it's a gift that
Yes.
whether you're a leader or a team member who's not a leader, it's always important. Do you tell people? I know I'm going into the camera a little. I'm doing it purposely for drama. Do you tell, or do you ask? And as a coach, I know we're all trained. You don't tell. That's why coaches ask so many questions because then the client comes up with his or her own answers. And that's the same thing, leaders, we need to be coaches.
Yeah.
Would you like to say something about that?
Yeah, I mean, people know their own problems way better than we do. There's no way
Ha.
we can come into a situation and give the same advice based on our own lived experience and how we did it and how we learned the best way to fix a problem. That's not going to work for everybody. And there's no way that we can give the same advice to everybody and have it work for everyone. And it's going to break things. You're going to break things.
Yes. And this is when we have to, again, we're going to take the elephant out of the room. I always use that expression because it still works today. Meaning, if you think that someone is closed off to you, just don't walk away and say, oh God, what's his or her problem? But to actually say, hey, we used to have some great conversations.
Yes.
I feel that, we haven't been able to tell me, is it something that I've done? That's showing humility, Sarah. That is not saying I'm the leader, I'm right, but I want to hear from you. You matter.
Yep.
Thoughts?
Yeah. Thank you for saying that. This is where the real talk really comes in, because you can't avoid these uncomfortable situations. Conflict is not always going to come at you. Conflict is sometimes happening and you can feel it. There's a discomfort between you and another person, but it's not being addressed, right? The conflict is there. The difficulty is there, but you have to walk into it. You have to walk into it. And even, or especially if maybe you did something wrong, and that's super uncomfortable, but addressing that discomfort that's where you really build relationships. That's where you really build trust. When you are willing to lean into your wrong, own it, talk about it, and then work through how to go past it, right? To acknowledge to any other person, people who work for you, I can't explain to you the amount of respect you will earn by acknowledging when you're wrong or when you haven't handled something well, and then open it up to them to help you fix it.
And Sarah, you being the real talk expert, me having a trademark called Be Direct with Respect. I always say, you don't have to be assertive to deal with conflict. That's an excuse for you to say, oh, I'm conflict averse. I don't know how. You may not know how. Then get the training, read the books.
Practice.
What did you just say?
Practice.
Oh, hello.
Yeah.
Practice. If you've got someone at home, if you have a dog or cat or a partner, and I go in front of the mirror before I need to have that tough conversation. Yes, I'm the queen of conflict resolution, folks. I have to plan and practice the tough conversations. Sometimes you don't have the time. And that's why learning from a coach, from going to workshops is very important. But I plan mine and I figure out how am I going to make the conversation safe. Now, Sarah, we're going to continue this conversation. We're going to take a quick break. But folks, please stay here at Keep Conflict to the Curb, because we're going to listen more from the wisdom of Sarah Velez. Are you ready to stop dreading those tough conversations and experience more enjoyment at work? Well, you have 3 options to work with me. The Quick Start 1-hour discovery session, the Dynamic Communicator private coaching package for you or an employee, and a facilitated group coaching option, which is an interactive group experience. Visit joyceweiss.com to find out more. Well, we're back. We're at Kick Conflict to the Curb. I'm Joyce Weiss, and we're talking about conflict challenge with our special guest, Sarah Velez. So, Sarah, since this is all about conflict, how can people follow up to ensure that there is conflict resolution?
Yeah, closing that loop is so vital. Making sure that you come back, and this goes back to eliminating that discomfort. These are all uncomfortable things to do. Let's just own that right now. Like going to someone and saying, we need to talk about something that's going on. It's going to be uncomfortable. Practicing can mean practicing in a mirror. It can mean practicing with very low risk conversations and getting really good at that level, and then working your way up to those more serious conversations that have more serious consequences. But circling back afterwards, that's how you keep the line of communication open. You have to keep that line of communication open to continue building trust with someone. It's not a one and done. These things, especially if you're a leader and you're responsible for outcomes and objectives, and you have to ruffle someone's feathers by addressing, I mean, people don't like to be addressed with conflict either, right? If somebody is not doing a good job at work, they probably know it's probably not on purpose, right? They want to do the best they can. Everyone has the best of intentions, assuming that is always the best path forward. But you have to go back and make sure that everything is good. People are doing what they committed to, that you're on the same page, that you're open to hearing that they have issues or that there's something getting in the way of them making progress. But continuing that conversation is so important.
And okay, so I watch TV to relax. And almost every time there's a relationship, this is the conversation. So, are we good? So, are we good? And I'm thinking, I scream, so my relaxation just goes out the window. That's not helpful. That's not the loop. It's so what can I do to make it easy for you? What do you need from me? Please feel free to voice your concern. I really want to hear. You count. You matter. Versus, are we good? You know, people with, especially the conflict averse people. Oh, I'm okay.
Oh,
you know when they're not.
Desperate to have that conversation over, right? I mean, that's all that's saying is I am so uncomfortable right now. I just want this over as quickly as humanly possible. And I want to never do it again. That's what that's saying, right? And the person hearing it knows that's what you're saying. And unfortunately, there are several consequences of that behavior, right? One is that loop is never closed. That line of communication is now closed.
Nope.
And the chances of that person actually following through with what was committed to in that conversation are relatively low, right? There's probably not going to be another consequence since they know you're so uncomfortable with having dealt with this conversation in the first place. You might never bring it up again, and that just, it eliminates the ability to continually build trust.
And you wonder why we sometimes feel like hamsters in a hamster wheel. We are going in circles. As a matter of fact, my new newsletter after our session today, I am going to be finishing a topic which is all about how do you get yourself out of that hamster wheel going around and around, expecting different results, and you don't change. So if you get nothing else from this small segment, folks, if you use so are we good? Please listen to Sarah and Joyce and get that out of your vocabulary. Gone. So I have a very important question to ask you, Sarah. Did you ever have a tough conversation with colleagues, direct reports, or leaders?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, as you said, I was in labor relations. So my work almost daily involved difficult conversations of one type or another. And, honestly, the relationship building, it seems like you don't have an opportunity to build a lot of really good and strong relationships. But the better you handle these difficult conversations, the better those relationships are. And I used to say, I could tell that I was doing a good enough job for myself, right, by my own standards, if I could maintain a relationship with someone where we weren't uncomfortable talking to one another after a difficult conversation happened. That if someone needed my help, they wouldn't avoid coming to me for help, right? So knowing that there was still a level of trust, that I handled that situation with enough respect for that person and their unique circumstances, that there was an opening for them to take up some space in that conversation and tell me their story too. So I could take that into consideration. I don't come with a decision already made. I don't come pretending that I know what you're going to say about what's going on, but listen to them. And then where do we go from here? It's like you said, this isn't okay, so are we good, right? Are we done now? Am I done? Have I done my job? That's what I'm asking you, right? No, don't do that. But say, where do we go from here? How are we going to fix this? And give them a stake in the solution. It's so vital that people have those opportunities. And yeah, I mean, I have so many examples, so many examples of some very easy, problems to address. Like, hey, I noticed you didn't come in today on time. What's going on? And being really genuinely interested in what that person has to say. To, we found out that you're doing something at work that we know you're not supposed to be doing, and we would really like to understand what's going on and why this is happening, and try and help us understand your perspective on this. We already know something's going on. We already know it's prohibited. It's prohibited, but we would like to understand more about what's going on with you. Can you help us understand? But coming with those openings.
So you take that elephant out of the room because of
Yeah.
your training in labor relations. What happened in the past when someone said, I don't want to talk to you about this, or they close up?
Yep.
And they don't, and they're not open. When you ask those great open questions, then, or silence. How did you handle that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's important for all of us to recognize that we aren't owed someone else's story. They don't owe me that, right? It helps. It helps me to navigate toward a solution. It helps us to work together toward that solution. There's going to be an outcome, regardless of whether I understand fully what's going on with you or not. It's my responsibility in my job to uphold the rules, policies, procedures of my employer. And it's your responsibility to do the same. So there will be an outcome if you have something that you're willing to share with me that can help me find the best possible outcome. I would love to have that conversation with you. If not, I can't do anything about that.
So there's your answer. You're still building a bridge. If you share this, I'm going to do what I can to help you. If you don't, it's your responsibility. Or you said it much better than I did. But yeah, and that's I had a guest, and he's very aggressive, military guy, and he said to me when I asked that question, well, what do you do when people don't respond? He said, well, you're going to respond. I am not going to leave this office until I hear you say this. Now, some of you may say, oh, that's really brash. Well, he's a very strong, my guest is a very strong individual, a very caring individual. He did it in a way that said, not as a dictator, but to say, hey, I need to hear from you. You're right, Sarah, that this person doesn't owe you the story. When it comes to productivity, though, my guest said, hey, they're either going to share or this person may be on the way out. Exactly. So that's why he chose to be so direct. That, and I took from him, and I won't, and I'm not that assertive, if you want to say that, versus aggressive. The thing is, though, I really took from that and said, how could I add some of that to those people who just don't want to share?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. This is not a one size fits all. You'll have somebody in front of you who is, more receptive. You'll have people who are more closed off. You'll have people in front of you. I mean, especially in my labor relations role, many of the individuals that I had to have these difficult conversations with, I had never met before, right? I have no firsthand experience with their work ethic or the situation at hand. I didn't witness any of the behaviors or actions firsthand. And it was important for me to own that with them and sit in that space and say, this is the first time we're meeting. And this is a potentially awkward conversation. And I know it's going to be difficult for you to talk with me about things that mean a lot to you in your daily life. And I've never been a part of, right? So I want to acknowledge right now that we don't know each other. And this is the first time we're ever talking. And this adds a dynamic to the conversation that might be challenging. And at the same time, I'm here with you, and I'm about trying to get to the bottom of the issue and to hear what you have to say. And I haven't made any decisions, and I just want to understand. And it's going to be up to us in this conversation to help me understand. So I appreciate the approach of not letting it go, and I have absolutely asked the question over and over again. If I feel like there's something that you get a feel, right, for whether someone is going to potentially open up or not. And you can give a few different opportunities. You can come at it a couple of different ways. Explaining the consequences if they don't is very helpful. If there's, they should know what's at stake before they decide whether they're going to share their story with you or whether they're going to withhold. But they still have a right to withhold, but they do have to know what happens on the other end if they do.
And that's the theme of the show. I love I'm picking up so many gems. They don't owe the story. They don't owe you the story.
What's more important, I think, is it takes you as the facilitator of that conversation out of that process, right? These revert back to natural consequences for their decisions and for their actions. These are natural consequences. This isn't me imparting a punishment on you.
No.
You have the policies and procedures and all of the contracts and all of the rules, just like we all do. I am simply facilitating a discussion whereby we might have an understanding for why you did the thing, why you broke the rule, why you didn't follow the procedure, why you didn't, exhibit the best possible behavior in that situation. I'm just why.
See, this last part is the most important thing, folks, is to actually say what Sarah is saying. To actually, that's just being, okay, that's why she's a real talk expert, is to actually say these things. Don't be afraid of being real, authentic. And these conversations could go sour. They could absolutely fall flat. Now, listen, I've got one last question. Actually, two last questions. This one. If you and I were going to meet for a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, what would you ask me?
Oh, Joyce, I think this is such a topic that people avoid, like the plague, right? This is right up there with public speaking, head-on conflict, right? And it makes me wonder why you're drawn to this topic, why you decided to take this on when so many people avoid it.
Oh, no, I love that question. So when I switched from being a keynote speaker to a facilitator, one of my first jobs was to work with a credit union. And I learned after we went around the room and I said, okay, everybody share what you need from each other. And this one individual actually folded her arms and said, I'll pass. So that was the whole day. And this was my first facilitation. So I didn't really know what I was doing. So I let it go. Then finally at the end of that day, I said, thanks for your participation. Tomorrow, I want you to be prepared to come with what the other people on your team, what they're doing to stop you from participating. So we're going to be doing it's going to be though in a very positive way. Then I said, if you decide not to participate, I'm going to ask you to stay in the office and not come to the meeting. Well, Sarah, that was a risk. But I know when the leader came up to me and gave me a hug and said, Joyce, I've been trying to figure out what to do with this individual. That's when the aha went out. And I said, if the CEO of this credit union didn't know how to have a tough conversation with someone who was part of the executive team, then how many other leaders don't know? So that's how I started. But then you and I know that as we go into a new journey, and I'm not going to get into my personal story right now because that could take 700 hours. But then it dawned on me, years ago, I wasn't heard and I wasn't listened to and I didn't voice my opinion. So when I say find your voice with Joyce, it came. I wasn't just born with it. It was a process. So thank you for the question.
Yeah.
Um, Now, my question, last question. I can't believe it's over. Will you come back?
Oh, yeah, of course. I love talking with you. We could probably talk all day.
Well, I know we can because we almost started the show late. Uh, so tell how people can get a hold of you, please.
Oh, sure. Yeah, my LinkedIn link should be on the screen right now. Yeah, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a message if you have questions or would like to talk something through. Sounding board is absolutely part of this process, right? Having people you trust who you can soundboard off of is really, really
Yes.
important and so helpful.
Well, please take advantage of Sarah's offer. And Sarah, I'm not even going to just invite you, but I think it was Brent Brugink. You know Brent,
I
right?
do. Yeah.
The two of you together have some positive energy about conflict. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're gonna have the next show with the two of you as guests.
No, that would be so much fun.
Okay,
Yeah. No, Bren is amazing.
good. Well, and so are you. Well, thank you very much for being a stellar guest, and you will be back. It was
Thank
a
you.
pleasure interviewing you. So I hope that you have enjoyed yourself as much as I did interviewing Sarah. And if you want to stop the drama and enjoy going to work, I invite you to go to joyceweiss.com to explore coaching packages and facilitation packages that may be right for you. And how do you know if it's right for you? Because if you want your associates to feel comfortable using their voice, there's lots and lots of videos and articles on that subject. And if you want people to start feeling confident, or you to start feeling confident expressing yourself. And also send me an email, joyce@joyceweiss.com, so that we can set up a Jam with Joyce session, which is complimentary, so you can figure out how to kick conflict to the curb. Well, I want to thank every single person here who is either watching live or who is watching the recording, because I take every single person very seriously who watches this show. And I appreciate you. And for those of you who are new, please connect with me on LinkedIn so that you can see when I'm going to be having another show. So until next time, I'm Joyce Weiss. And remember, you get what you tolerate. Is it going to be chaos or calm?